back in my past life, when I was a personal trainer, clients would come to me saying things like they wanted to lose weight or get stronger or eat better. But even when I would give these particular clients a detailed plan, they wouldn't follow it. So I often see this as well happening in the clients and the students that I work with now as a teacher and a psycho-spiritual counselor. I have clients and students who come to me because they say they have this desire to grow, both personally and spiritually, but there seems to be some mysterious resistance when it comes to doing whatever work is needed, whether it's making the time for spiritual practice or sitting down to journal and reflect maybe on some important inquiries. So, what I know is that this resistance is almost never what it seems. It's not as simple as saying to yourself, oh, I actually do have time to do my meditation, or I know that this is good for me, so I'm going to do it because I know I'm going to feel better afterwards. Because you can't rationalize with resistance. So, stay tuned because in this video, we're going to unpack the sacred intelligence of resistance. Hey there, yogis and yoginis. I'm Lisa Witter, and welcome to my channel where we dive into how to live a Tantra-informed life by bridging the classical teachings and practices of non-dual Tantra with the realities of our everyday life. So if you haven't already, please do be sure to subscribe because I post new videos regularly to help you live with greater freedom and fulfillment and joy. All right, so let's talk about what this resistance really is and why in non-dual Tantra we don't try to overcome resistance. We get curious about it instead. So the thing is that resistance isn't something to overcome. It's something that we need to listen to. In the view of non-dual Tantra, everything that arises, every thought, every emotion is the divine expressing itself through you. Even the part of you that says, nope, not gonna do that. And so the opportunity here is to enter into a different relationship with that part of you that says, no way, I'm not doing that. So whether it's saying, I don't want to meditate, or I don't want to be still enough to actually hear what's really going on, or I don't want to do that grounding practice because even though I know that it's going to help me. In my experience, both in my personal practice and in guiding others, resistance is almost always a sign that something deeper wants to be seen, wants to be acknowledged, wants to be heard or validated, not steamrolled. So one of the ways that I like to explore resistance is through the lens of the 6 realms. So these come from Buddhist psychology and Buddhist teachings, but I use them in a slightly different way. I like to think of them as karmic patterns, karmic weather systems, if you will, that are emotional landscapes or inner climates that shape how we relate to life. And we don't need to treat these as problems to fix. Instead, we treat them as invitations, as doorways into the path of awakening. So let's go ahead and look at how resistance shows up in these realms. Now, if you've taken my karmic patterns quiz, you're probably introduced to this and understand this, but if you're new, these patterns aren't fixed identities. They're states that we move through, right? Usually without realizing it. And when it comes to resistance, it can show up as any of these karmic patterns or realms, and each one of them reveals sort of like this different flavor of resistance. So let's look at each one of those briefly now. So this first realm or karmic pattern is known as the animal realm. And it's all about safety and survival and protecting your space physically, emotionally, energetically. And this karmic pattern is of fear and reactivity. And when resistance shows up here, it often sounds like, don't tell me what to do, or I don't care if it's good for me. Back off, buddy. But underneath that pushback, what's really happening is a defense against your sovereignty, a really deep instinct to protect your right to choose. So the core need that resistance is protecting in this realm is the need for autonomy. Now, the second realm is known as the hell realm, and it's all about anger and control. So, for example, if you grew up maybe in an environment where love was conditional or where mistakes were met with shame or blame, then anything that feels like an obligation might trigger a strong internal no, even if you consciously want to do it. So in these moments, what's happening is that resistance is coming from this place, this deeper place with thoughts like, I don't want to be controlled by anybody. So what's being protected here is the need to feel safe in making your own choices, the need for self-honoring choice, free from any pressure or punishment. Then the next realm is what's known as the hungry ghost realm, which is usually associated with this craving and this never-ending longing or desire. But sometimes resistance in this pattern shows up in the exact opposite way. So instead of grasping for more, what happens is we deny ourselves what we actually want. There's this background voice that's always sort of saying, I'm not good enough. I don't really deserve that. And so what we do is we hold back. We don't step forward. We don't speak up. We don't take that opportunity, even when there's a part of us that longs for those opportunities. So in these moments, what's happening is that resistance is protecting that place inside that needs to feel loved and accepted, just like we are. And then there is the Titan realm, which is this karmic pattern of striving and competition and comparison. And here resistance shows up and sounds like this internal voice of, I don't need help. I'm going to figure it out myself. Even when a part of you might feel overwhelmed or unsure, there's this drive to prove I can do it all on my own. And so this resistance is all about protecting an image of competence, of being the one who always has it all together. And underneath all of that, though, is this need to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be recognized, not for what you're producing necessarily, but for who you are. And that brings me to the fifth realm, which is the God realm. And this pattern is marked by egoic pride. And it's this subtle sense of being above it all, where when resistance arises here, it's going to sound like, I already know this. This doesn't really apply to me. It's like this refined kind of distancing, one that resists humility or being seen as someone who still has something to learn. But beneath that resistance is the need to be seen and be acknowledged without being diminished or being put into something that feels smaller than who you are. So the final realm is called the human realm, and resistance in this realm shows up as a type of confusion where you might find yourself thinking, I know I want this and I know it's good for me, but why do I keep avoiding it? So in this pattern, what happens is we tend to override our inner wisdom in order to meet some type of internal standard, like an idea of who we think we should be or what we think that we should want. But underneath all of this is the need to not be fixed or not be pushed, but to be understood, to be met with curiosity and compassion instead of judgment or expectation. So the next time you find yourself thinking, why do I have so much resistance to this? Or judging yourself for not following through, just pause and take a breath and then ask yourself, which one of these karmic patterns might be playing out for me right now? And that very simple question can shift you out of judgment and into compassion. because what happens is it brings space to that part of you that's saying no, and it invites you to listen instead of push. And when we really start listening, that clarity can emerge. And so this makes me think of, I was working with someone recently who was trying to become more regular with their meditation practice, and they had this insight that sort of cracked the whole thing open for them. And they said, you know what? I realize that I do have the time. I just don't want to. And that moment was so important because it revealed to them that resistance wasn't actually about time or motivation. It was about something else. There was a part of them that had learned at a really young age that being told what to do, even if it was good for them, meant giving up their power. And that part didn't need to be shamed or pushed. It needed to be seen and heard, right? So when we try to override the resistance, it just pushes back harder. I'm sure you've experienced that before. So if you're feeling stuck right now or resistant right now, if you've been in that cycle of, I know I want this, but why won't I do it? Then try this. Just pause and then feel your body and notice where that resistance is, even if it's subtle. And then ask the question, what does this part need? Maybe it's autonomy. Maybe it's the need to be understood or to feel safe or to feel recognized. These are the kind of needs that we just explored through the 6 karmic patterns, right? And this is an opportunity really to meet that energy with curiosity instead of conflict. Even if we know ultimately there are no separate parts, right? This language, what it does is it helps us to listen to the energy of resistance as it shows up. So there might not be an answer right away, but just this act of asking the question is the doorway. This is what changing the nature of your relationship to resistance is all about. So ultimately, living a Tantra-informed life means recognizing that nothing, not even resistance, is outside of the path. When we don't understand our resistance, most of us tend to either push through it or collapse underneath the pressure of it. And both of those can lead to burnout and self-doubt, or even staying stuck in the same karmic patterns. But when we begin to relate to resistance as something sacred, as part of the unfolding, not as a mistake to fix, then something shifts. We stop wasting energy in a war against ourselves, really, and instead we make space for more truth, more clarity, more authentic action, not just in our practice, but of course in our relationships, in our work, in our creativity, even how we show up and care for our own bodies. So if you want to explore how these karmic patterns might be showing up in your life, I have created a free karmic patterns quiz that can help you identify which realm you might tend to be blocked by or get caught by, and how to start working with it more consciously. So you'll find the link to that quiz in the description below. And also be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because I put out videos like this one on a regular basis. So until next time, may you meet your resistance with curiosity and compassion, and the recognition that this resistance too, is part of the path. Take care and namaste.